Hello and welcome to yet another session of this course on 20th century American drama. We are continuing to discuss this play, All My Sons, which incidentally is also the first commercially successful play by Arthur Miller. And Arthur Miller, as we have already noticed, he takes great interest in exploring this theme, the father-son conflict, which remains at the core of most of his works. And this is something that we already noticed in the discussion of the play, The Death of a Salesman. So here, as we have been noticing in All My Sons, here is this central character whom we are introduced to right at the outset of the play, Joe Keller. And we realize that there is a certain way in which he is keeping the family together by also allowing certain illusions, by also allowing certain half-truths to be not spelled out within the family. And we realize that it's a post-war play and death is at the center. Death is also something which is very unspeakable, and there are different truths, different memories that each of the characters find a lot of comfort in. And this is arrival of the character Annie from the past, from 3 years ago. We realized, there are many choices to be made in terms of what they will choose to believe in. And as we are continuing with this, we will take off from where we left in the last session, where Chris, perhaps one of the most practical characters in this play, he is also Kate and Joe Keller's son. He is making this statement: we never took up our lives again. He's talking about a time period after Larry's death. We still do not know whether Larry actually died or not, because his body was never found, and the mother chooses to believe that he's not dead yet, and the rest of the family, they want to continue, get on with their life, but mother's fragile state does not allow them to do that either. So we see the breaking down of this memorial tree, the falling of this memorial tree at the beginning of this play, which is also very symbolic in some sense. And here we find Chris making this statement: we never took up our lives again. We are like at a railroad station waiting for a train that never comes. So the family is right now in the middle of this very tumultuous time where Chris is trying to make some plans just so they could have some family time together like any other normal family. And he's proposing that they could go out dancing at the show. 4 of us might go out to a dinner at a couple of nights, maybe go dancing out at the show. He's thinking of as the 4th person, including Annie too. Annie, with whom now Chris intends to marry, but who was always seen as Larry's girl before his death. So mother too agrees to do that. And again, when they are alone together, Joe Keller and his wife, they are again beginning this discussion. Why did he invite her here? Why does that bother you? She's been in New York 3.5 years. Why all of a sudden? Well, maybe he just wanted to see her. Nobody comes 700 miles just to see. So there is another specific detail that we get. This unnamed town, there's an unnamed American town where the play happens. It is 700 miles away from New York. So we also get some snippets into how life was for them before the 3 years. So in so many ways, we find that life is stagnant for them during these 3 years, ever since Larry has been absent from their lives. So here, when Keller is saying he lived next door to the girl all his life, why shouldn't he want to see her again? Mother looks at him critically. Don't look at me like that. He didn't tell me any more than he told you. He is not going to marry her. Yeah. So we find that there's something very, very close-knit about this family, which makes this emotional turmoil all the more difficult. So Chris Keller is a grown-up young man who wants to make this decision about his marriage, but he also does not want to go ahead without the permission of his parents. And mother, of course, though it has not yet been spelled out to her, she also entirely understands where he's coming from, and he is able to identify the intentions that he has in mind, Chris has in mind. And which is why without even been told about these intentions, she is spelling it out very clearly as a warning and a question. He's not going to marry her. How do you know he's even thinking about it? It's got that about it. Well, so what? What's going on here, Joe? Now listen, kid. She's not his girl, Joe. She knows she's not. Yeah. You can't read her mind. Then why is she still single? New York is full of men. Why isn't she married? Probably 100 people told her she's foolish, but she's waited. How do you know why she waited? She knows what I know. That's why she's faithful as rock. In my worst moments, I think of her waiting, and I know that I am right. Look at these various markers of validity that the mother's mind is seeking. She, in her mind, the girl is waiting for Larry. Girl is single, so in her mind, she equates that to waiting, and that process of waiting validates her wait also. It validates her belief that maybe Larry is not dead yet and he's going to come back. And there were a lot of instances like this in the post-war period where a lot of people who were reportedly had gone missing. They had come back from various places, had shown up out of the blue. So that was like a very romantic, fantastic story that people wanted to believe in. It had given them a lot of hope. But at the same time, here we find that such stories are also giving a pseudo sense of hope, which is not allowing the family to move forward. There is no closure which the family is allowed to reach. And this is partly because of the stubborn nature of this mother's belief that Larry is not yet dead, and partly because of the false hope with which a lot of these stories in the newspapers and the newer systems have been supplying the citizens with. So Keller, being the kind of man who always wants to establish peace in the family, he's again trying to move forward by ignoring the real issue over here. What are we arguing for? Look, it's a nice day. Nobody in this house does take her faith away, Joe. Strangers might, but not his father, not his brother. That is very important for her. For her, in the mother's mind, when it comes to Larry's the question of Larry's life and death, she's not bothered about what the others are thinking. That really does not matter to her. But for her, it's very important that her husband and her other son believes that Larry will come back. Larry will show up someday, that he's not dead yet, because that is something which is also very crucial to this belief system that she has. It's something very crucial to her own faith. So she's also projecting this onto Annie, saying that her faith should not be taken away. But on the other hand, when she's talking about her faith, Annie's faith being taken away, what she's actually referring to is perhaps her own faith being taken away. The moment Chris decides to marry Annie, and the moment Annie agrees to it, that brings a closure about the future or the lack of future with Larry. So that is something that the mother is not yet prepared for. This is very important, where the mother, Kate, is actually articulating what's exactly there in her mind. In that process, also spelling out the fallacy in it. Yeah, you see the helplessness over here, the sense of desperation, the helplessness is quite tangible in these lines. What do you want me to do? What do you want? Keller is extremely exasperated over here. We know that he's trying to get back to a normal life, and while he's reading the newspaper too, it affects his getting back to the normal life, because he does not want to see the real news page. He wants to take refuge, he as well as Chris. They want to move away from whatever is not entirely real, because that is their way in which the family's peace and sanity could be preserved as well. So here mother is saying, I want you to act like he's coming back, both of you. Don't think I haven't noticed you since Chris invited her. I won't stand for any nonsense. So this is something that mother's expectations are very clear. They do not want them to entirely believe that, but he at least wants them to act like he's coming back. That is what she needs. That's a kind of reassurance. So there is a lot of pathos in this situation, a lot of tragedy in this situation. So she continues, because if he's not coming back, then I'll kill myself. Laugh at me. She points to a tree. But why did that happen? The very night she came back, she goes to sleep in his room and his memorial breaks in pieces. Look at it, look. So the breaking down of this memorial tree, that is seen in different ways by these characters over here. So for the mother, it is this very strong signal that Larry is responding to the fact that Annie is visiting there, and the memorial is breaking into pieces in order to send a sign, in order to reiterate and confirm her beliefs. So and here again, she's giving one instance. Only last week a man turned up in Detroit, missing longer than Harry. You read it yourself, yeah? All right, calm yourself. Above all, you above all have got to believe. You. Why me above all? Just don't stop believing. What does that mean? Me above all, yeah? So, this is also, these insinuations, the subtle insinuations that these family members have against each other, that tells us a lot about the kind of baggage that they are carrying with them, the emotional baggage. And some of those, also have certain legal implications, as we would see that very soon. So now, this conversation is interrupted by Jim's, the neighbor's kids, Bert and Tommy. So they come rushing in saying, one of them said a dirty word and they have to be arrested. So these words are, giving a sort of a panic attack to the mother. Mother with suddenness, stop that, Bert, go home. There's no jail here. Oh, Keller, Kate, yeah. So, and this also, this interruption from Keller is also, oh, what the hell, let him believe there is a jail, yeah. Here we find a reversal of the kind of things that they choose to believe in, the kind of things that they are willing to let go of. About something as big as Larry's death, yeah. About Larry's death, something really big like that. Mother chooses not to let go of the belief that he is alive. But over here we find that with something seemingly very childish about the kids playing, police and jail and such things. Mother is infuriated, but Keller wants to let them believe that there is jail. But there is, here we find mother reacting in a very furious way, saying, there's no jail here. I want you to stop the jail business. He turns shamed but peeved, and now we will get to know that there is something very, very dark about this family. There are some secrets, very, very more secrets perhaps, than what happened to Larry. Bert passed her to Keller. He's right across the street. Go home, Bert. Bert turns around and goes up driveway. She's shaken. Her speech is bitten off. Extremely urgent. I want you to stop that, Joe, the whole jail business. Yeah. So as we indicated in the previous, as we noticed in the previous section 2, in the previous lecture 2, it's a very slow kind of revelation in this play, step by step. So there's something about the jail business which is bothering and infuriating mother a lot, yeah, because she is the kind of a person who can live with the fact that, who can entertain and who can find a lot of comfort and assurance in the fact that her son is not dead, even when the others choose not to believe it. But here, the very mention of the word jail and arrest in the middle of a kid's game, that is infuriating her. That is giving her almost like a panic attack. Keller, alarmed and therefore angered, look at you shaking. I can't help it. What have I got to hide? What the hell is the matter with you, Kate? I didn't say you had anything to hide. I'm just telling you to stop it. Now stop it. As Anne and Chris appear on the porch, Anne is 26, gentle but despite herself capable of holding fast to what she knows. Take a breath of that air, kid. You'll never get air like that in New York. You also find this dichotomy here being inserted in the middle of these conversations about what New York is, about the expectations of people who live in New York, and about, how mother says, Annie, in spite of living in New York and meeting with so many men, she has chosen not to get married to another man, and she's not, in relationship with any other man. So the expectations in terms of emotions, relationships, value systems, and even in terms of, the comparisons between the good air in the outskirts over here and comparing it with the city life, yeah. So we find these subtle nuances being inserted in the middle of these conversations. Yeah, so here, we are very mildly being introduced to a darker secret over here without letting in more details over here. And there are also these very convenient digressions which come in. So there's a tension building up about the mention of jail and arrest, and this is infuriating Kate, the mother, and it's also something which affects Keller too. Keller, who has remained as a composed man until about this point, it's beginning to shake him up too. And there is this digression right in the middle where they begin to talk about the pretty dress that Anne is wearing, and this in fact heightens the tension. as an audience, as a reader, you know that there is something more to it. There are darker secrets, graver secrets over here, but it's also interrupted by these mundane things, which we also know is very metaphorical, because this is how the family has been functioning too. There are these mundane things, very superficial things, which would be used as convenient interruptions to not to address the real issue. Yeah, they as a family in multiple ways, they had been avoiding the real thing, ignoring the real issue in hand, and refusing to move on, as Chris has been pointing out multiple times. And here's another digression which comes in with Sue, who's Jim's wife, who also shows up over here. So there's a very brief conversation over here, like which we can quickly go through. All right, Susie, all right, I've only met you, Anne, but if I may offer you a piece of advice, when you marry, never, even in your mind, never count your husband's money. Yeah. So Sue is emerging, the wife is emerging from off stage. Jim is a doctor, but he's also quite idealistic in nature. He wants to pursue, he wants to, stop practicing and get into medical research. Yeah? At a later point, we will find that, Jim and Sue, though they are like side characters over here, they're also heavily influenced by this dichotomy between idealism and practicality, which is one of the major themes of this play as well. So Sue and Jim and their, perceived difficulties are briefly introduced to us over here, so that we can wait for more details at a later point. So here, now towards the end of Act 1, we come to this section where the mother is trying to enter into a conversation with Annie about Chris. Yeah, here we find that mother wants to enter into this conversation with Annie by discussing Larry, and this is something the mother hopes that will further validate her point about Larry still being alive. And in her mind, whether there's absolutely no way in which where they can fact check and find out whether Larry is alive or not. So she has these tests with different people, and the way in which people are acting or believing will give her a validation about her own belief that her son is still alive. And it could be, the tree falling, the memorial tree falling. It could be Annie just showing up at the door. It could be the random signs that she's looking for. Like at the beginning of the play, we noticed that, she had his horoscope made, and that the date on which he supposedly died was not a favorable day, what was a favorable day for him, thereby also leading her into belief that he could not have possibly died on a day that was favorable for him. So here is a woman who's looking for, here's a mother who's looking for various signs to keep his son alive, symbolically, metaphorically. And here Annie becomes a very central presence in preserving this belief system. So she is telling Annie that the room that she used was Larry's, and all the things are still kept as they were before. And Annie is a bit surprised and embarrassed as well. You mean the shoes are all shined. For so long, I've been aching for a nice conversation with you, Annie. Tell me something. What? I don't know. Something nice? Yeah. So they are, Keller is also trying to interfere in this conversation. And mother wants to ask Annie this personal question, whether, she wants to get this confirmation that there is no other men, there were no other men in her life before, and to make sure that she is still waiting for, that Annie is still waiting for Larry to come back. So at this point, there is a way in which we find that it's a very delicate conversation over here. We also find them making an effort to bond with each other, and Annie also entirely understands the kind of emotions that, as a mother, Kate is going through, but she also thinks that it's important to tell her the truth. And here we find that this is what makes Annie's character very different from the others. And it is at this point that we realize a simple act like this, just telling the mother that she's not waiting for Larry, that she does not believe that he's dead. The simple act is something which is becoming very, very complex within that family system. So mother asks very directly, do you go out much? Yeah. You mean, am I still waiting for him? Well, no, I don't expect you to wait for him, but that's what you meant, isn't it? Well, yes. Well, I'm not, Kate. Yeah. So that is a point that's very, very clear over here, that Annie is not waiting for Larry, but mother is not able to accept that. Yeah. You're not? Isn't it ridiculous? You don't really imagine he is? I know, dear, but don't say it is ridiculous, because the papers were full of it. I don't know about New York, but there was half a page about a man missing even longer than Harry and turned up in Burma. And Chris is trying to make a joke out of it. He couldn't have wanted to come home very badly, Mom. Yeah. So they are all trying their best to pull her out of this illusion, which is harmful not just for her emotional health, but also for the entire family. It's not allowing them to move ahead. Yeah. So Chris is even, goes to the extent of saying, I'll bet you money that you're the only woman in the country who after 3 years is still, yeah. So they're still not, using the word death. There's something very unspeakable about this moment of death. Yeah. And she reiterates, they don't say it on the radio, but I'm sure that in the dark of night, they're still waiting for their sons. Yeah. She here becomes the spokesperson for all these mothers who are waiting for their sons. Yeah. And it's at this point that when she's having this conversation, this very intense conversation with Annie, with the others also being around, that we realize that, she is a symbol of perhaps a number of mothers who are waiting for their sons to come back in the post-war period. A number of mothers who have not got a closure to what had happened to their sons' lives. And this is very problematic. It's very tragic and very problematic at the same time. And here we find that, this is something that's a closure which is much needed, but it's also a closure that they do not want, because this open-endedness also gives them some hope to continue to live. And she's trying to project this onto others too. Deep, deep in your heart, you've always been waiting for him. And Anne is also resolutely telling her, no, she had not been. But this is a belief that the mother wants to project onto the others' lives too, because it's a way in which she can continue to live. Because she, at some point, she also says, if I come to know that, if I need to have a closure, that's going to kill her. Yeah. So, and she's also asking these a lot of pressing questions to each other, mother and Annie. Don't let them tell you what you think. Listen to your heart, only your heart. Yeah. So here them is the newspaper, the state, the rest of the family, anyone who's an outsider who's consuming this news, this information. And she here is also showing some resistance to consume this information which is coming to her without validating it herself. And it's an emotional validation too that she needs. Why does your heart tell you she's alive? Because he has to be. And look at this response, and we will wrap up with this. Because certain things have to be and certain things can never be. Like the sun has to rise, it has to be. That's where there's God. Otherwise anything could happen. But there's God, so certain things can never happen. I would know, Annie. Just like the day he, indicating Chris, went into the terrible battle. Did he write to me? Was it in the papers? No, but that morning I couldn't raise my head off the pillow. Asked Joe. Suddenly I knew. And he was nearly killed that day. And I am right. Yeah. So here, this is where we find that there is a very clearly a very different trajectory that the mother's life is taking over here. She's rooted in her reality only in a very physical sense. In other ways, she is trying to find refuge in religion and moving away from everything that looks real and moving towards all those abstract things which will help her in some sense not to arrive at a closure. Yeah. Here, has this reliance on the natural things like a sun rising, on all the supernatural things which happened according to her mind, the memorial tree falling, or those sort of discomfort that she had on the terribility of the battle. She's relying on a number of natural things, a number of cosmic things, supernatural things, yeah, and also on religion, on God, in order to not reach a closure. Yeah. So here we find a certain a moment of uncertainty, a moment of disruption over here in this, not just in her life, but she becomes a symbol of many such lives, yeah, which where they haven't reached a closure, but they do not want to arrive at that closure either, because reaching that closure would also mean that their life has come to an end, that a sense of hope has come to an end. So this play in so many ways, it opens up these different truths these different realities that people would want to believe in, that people would choose to inhabit or choose not to inhabit. Yeah. So this again, sets the stage for not just this play. These emotions are also indicative of the larger things which are happening outside in the society, and the play is merely reflecting and trying to mirror these mirror as well as capture these dichotomies and these different dilemmas with the nation in its entirety is going through as well. So we bring this session to a close with this, and I thank you for your time.